well, hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. Hello. My name is Karilyn Loui, and I am a Principal Product Manager at Oracle. I currently manage Oracle Enterprise Manager, the market-leading platform which provides deep monitoring and management of your IT estate, whether it's on-premise, in the cloud, or hybrid. So today I will go over some best practices with monitoring using Oracle Enterprise Manager. Oracle Enterprise Manager has led the industry for years in stack-centric active management. It provides a central communications hub for Oracle database and engineer systems customers to use every single day for troubleshooting and lifecycle management activities across their hybrid Oracle estate. It provides sophisticated automation to achieve massive scale in database management activities. It also provides segregation of duties via comprehensive role-based access control and privilege management to ensure that its automation is used in a controlled, business-appropriate fashion. Enterprise Manager is widely deployed in the Oracle customer base and has a massive ecosystem of partners who are skilled in its usage and have achieved OPM specialization. So today's agenda will focus on monitoring best practices. Whether you are a customer or a partner who is just getting started with Enterprise Manager, or you are someone who has used Enterprise Manager for a long time, these basic principles apply. So let's get started with basic monitoring. In a basic monitoring scenario, typically you have Enterprise Manager deployed at the department level where it's used by only a few teams. Therefore, you have a small number of targets, and all that's needed are basic monitoring features, such as having visibility into target availability status, resource usage of the host that you're monitoring, and getting performance alerts via email notifications. This setup is most suitable for SMBs or proof of concepts. So for a basic monitoring scenario, there are 5 simple steps to get you started. First, you add your targets using auto discovery. And a target in Enterprise Manager is an entity, which is most commonly a host, a database, or a WebLogic server. It could be something like an ID split as well, it's a data environment, but in most cases, it's those 3 categories. Enterprise Manager will automatically discover targets to monitor soon after you install it. Next, after you promote your targets, you might want to make some adjustments to the monitoring settings of the target if needed. And then you want to standardize those settings across the board and carry it to other targets by doing this using this thing we call monitoring templates. Next, you want to set up your email address in Enterprise Manager so you can receive email notifications. Lastly, you want to make a copy of the out-of-the-box incident rule set, tailor it to your needs, and then subscribe to the rule set so you can get notified for the events or incidents that you care most about. The first step, as I mentioned after installing EM, is to navigate to auto discovery results and then promote the targets you want to monitor. In this case, there are 165 targets discovered on a single host alone that we have here. And it is up to you to decide what you want to promote and monitor. At the time of promotion, EM or Enterprise Manager will ask for credentials so that you can start monitoring. As I mentioned earlier, monitoring begins after you promote your target. This is the All Metrics page, which shows the data collected based on the time period that is selected. From this page, you can modify the warning and critical metric thresholds if needed. EM ships with default thresholds, but if you find that, say, 85% is too low and you don't want to get notified until table space reaches 90%, then this is where you can change that by just clicking on Modify Thresholds and changing those warning and critical thresholds. Another place where you can modify thresholds is the metric and collection settings page. Here, you can update the warning and critical thresholds for more than one metric, and then save your changes all in one go. So the difference between the previous page and this one is that this one you can actually, adjust the thresholds for a bunch of metrics at a time, and then just click OK to save it all in one shot. This is also a place where you can enable or disable a metric collection and then change the collection schedule. So in some cases, we have, say, a metric enabled or disabled, and you want to change that, and this is where you can go to do it. And also, we have default collection schedules for our metrics. Some are, say, every 15 minutes, the metric is, metric data is collected. Some are, say, 1 hour. If you find that you need to adjust those, you can do it here as well. So once you have your monitoring settings set up for one target, you can standardize those monitoring settings by creating a monitoring template from that target, so you don't have to repeat the effort to tens and hundreds of other targets of the same type. For example, once you have configured the standard monitoring settings for a pluggable database, you can create a monitoring template out of that PDB and apply that template to other PDBs. And those pluggable databases will pick up the settings from the monitoring template. And this is how you can standardize your monitoring settings across the board to your enterprise. Now, once you have a template created, you can mark it as the default so that the next time when a new pluggable database is discovered and promoted and added, it will pick up those same monitoring settings without any user intervention. Now, once you have monitoring set up and ready to go, it's a very straightforward process to set yourself up to receive email notifications. First, you just need to add an SMTP server into Enterprise Manager's outgoing mail setting. And then you add your email address in Enterprise Manager for your user account. The next thing we recommend to do is to make a copy of the out-of-the-box incident rule set. We ship EM with 2 out-of-the-box rule sets, and in there, there's some common use cases and rules that apply to most deployments. So we recommend making a copy of this rule set, tailoring it to your needs, and then subscribe to the rules and rule sets so that you can get notified. And subscribing to a rule means you want to get email notifications for them. Now, we ship EM with out-of-the-box rules to automatically create incidents for target down and critical metric alerts to make this easy for you. So that all you have to do is subscribe to those rules to get notified. There are other rules for common use cases shipped with EM, and you're welcome to make a copy of them and tweak to your liking. If there are other use cases that you want to get notified on, you can always create your own rule set with all of the knobs and controls that we have provided. Okay, so now that we have covered the steps to get started with basic monitoring, let's move on to enterprise monitoring. And I do want to mention that all of the things that were just mentioned for basic monitoring still does apply to enterprise monitoring. It's just that if you're taking EM to the enterprise level, there's just a few more things involved. Enterprise monitoring is what most of our customers have purchased Enterprise Manager for. They use Enterprise Manager to manage and monitor all of their Oracle technologies from application to disk. In most cases, each department has their own targets and requirements, and there's a lot more targets to monitor, which translates to a larger volume of events and incidents to manage as well. Many customers choose to integrate with their corporate ticketing system, and we have a few ways to achieve that. And of course, being that Enterprise Manager is a mission-critical application, it's important that it can provide 24/7 monitoring of production targets. So enterprise-level monitoring can be split into 2 parts. The first part is setting up your targets into groups based on department or line of business so that the right monitoring settings can be applied to those targets. You should also leverage corrective actions to automatically resolve the issues causing the alerts, and use metric extensions to fill in whatever monitoring gaps there are. The second part is managing your alerts using incidents. We recommend compressing related events into a single incident so that it is easier to manage. We have ways to integrate with your ticketing system and use blackouts to pause notifications during a planned maintenance. And lastly, we have a tool called Always On Monitoring, which provides alerting during a planned EM maintenance. So let's get started with part one, which is setting up your monitoring. The first thing we recommend to do is define groups for your monitoring operations. This means putting all of the targets you want to manage together into a single group. Groups, what they do is they enable you to collectively monitor and administer many targets as a single logical unit. So there are three types of groups in Enterprise Manager. There's a regular group, which is just called a group. There's a dynamic group, and then there's the administration group. Now, the difference between a regular group and dynamic group is that with a regular group, members are manually added, whereas with a dynamic group, the group membership is determined by membership criteria and targets are automatically added to a dynamic group once you specify the target property for the target. In this example on the right side, we have a dynamic group called prod group. So any targets with the lifecycle status target property set to production will be automatically added to the prod group. Over here, you'll see a checkbox for privilege propagation, and you can enable this option for either a regular group or a dynamic group. And what that will do is the privilege that you grant to the group will automatically cascade to its members. So this makes life so much easier if we're talking about, hundreds and thousands of targets that you want to grant privileges to. And it's also a much more efficient way to manage your target privileges. Now, one important tip worth mentioning is that the lifecycle status of a target has special meaning in EM. So we ship EM with some global target properties, such as department, contact, lifecycle status, and so forth. Now, lifecycle status is used to prioritize the job loader queue when EM is under heavy load, and priorities given first to mission critical targets, and then to production, and then stage, then test, then development, in the order that you see here. So as best practice, please assign mission critical lifecycle status wisely, because as someone from our consulting group once said, having everyone use the fast lane will just leave the normal queues empty and congest the fast lane. So make sure that when you assign lifecycle status for your targets that do not abuse the mission critical one. Now, a couple of slides ago, we talked about adding targets into the same group so that it's easier to perform monitoring operations on them. So suppose you are monitoring both database and hosts. And as best practice, you should create monitoring templates specific to your target type. This means you should have a template for database targets and another template for host targets. Now, if we factor in the lifecycle status of the target, in most cases, what we have seen is customers have stricter controls for their production environment versus development. They are okay when CPU is at 85% for a development instance, but they're not okay when CPU is at 85% for production. In this case, you should have a template for a production database versus development database, and a separate template for production hosts versus development hosts. You can apply templates to groups manually via the EM console, or you can use a command line interface called EMCLI to apply the monitoring templates. And another way to apply monitoring templates is via administration groups using template collections, which we will talk about in the next slide. Administration groups, they are a special type of group used to fully automate the application of monitoring and other management settings to targets upon joining the group. So when a target is added to the group, Enterprise Manager applies these settings using a template collection consisting of monitoring templates, compliance standards, and cloud policies. This completely eliminates the need for administrator intervention. And the way you go about with administration groups is, first, you define the administration group hierarchy based on the target property criteria. In this example, we have two administration groups based on their life cycle status target property. So we have the first group is production and the second group is development. As part of the administration group definition, you would associate template collections to the admin group. And the template collection contains target-specific monitoring templates and settings, compliance standards, and cloud policies. So now in this case, we have a monitoring template for our production environment, and we have another monitoring template for our development environment. And the settings in both templates are a little bit different. If you want to use the example I mentioned previously, for the production environment, our warning threshold is probably 80%, whereas for the development instance, it's 85%. So now what happens when you have the administration group defined and when a target is added to Enterprise Manager, after you set the lifecycle status target property to production, that target will automatically join the production administration group and have the production template collection applied to it. And so it will inherit the monitoring settings from the template collections monitoring template. After you have your administration group set up, you should create corrective actions. A corrective action is a job in EM that automates alert resolution actions without user intervention. It can also automate the collection of diagnostic information to assist in resolution of the problem. Corrective actions can run automatically by associating them with metric settings or event roles. Now, when a corrective action is associated to a metric, it will run when a metric violation on the warning or critical threshold occurs. And when a corrective action is associated to an event role, a matching condition for the event role will trigger the corrective action. Another way to run a corrective action is you can run it on demand from an incident in Incident Manager. This will let you go in to look at the incident and triage it first, and then decide whether or not you want to run a corrective action to resolve the issue. Here are some examples of out-of-the-box corrective actions for database targets. For example, you can start up a database, when it goes down, automatically using a corrective action. Same thing with the listener. We have a corrective action that can start a listener should it go down. There's a corrective action to add more space when the table space is full. There's also a way to, you can run any SQL scripts basically with a corrective action to collect diagnostic info. We also have a corrective action called OS command, which allows you to run scripts on a host. So there's a lot of flexibility with corrective action, and you can always create your own. Starting with EM13.1, we introduced a new out-of-the-box corrective action called add space to table space. And what this corrective action does is it can be associated with all table space full metrics. And essentially, it allows you to automatically extend an existing data file or create a new data file should your table spaces get full. There's a set of parameters that allow you to define the size and space of the new data file, or to define how much to increase the existing table space. So there are actually some fixes for this that went into the database plugins 13.3 and 13.4. So if you're interested in this corrective action, please check to make sure that you have the latest plugin. Also, if you want more information, please see my blog for more information about this corrective action. After you have monitoring set up, if you have some specific use cases, you can develop your own metric using metric extensions. A metric extension allows you to extend your monitoring scope because you can create your own metrics to suit your needs. And with the new metrics defined, you can set up warning and critical thresholds to be alerted on and take advantage of EM's out-of-the-box capabilities, such as historical trending and reporting. So a metric extension, in essence, is treated the same way as a regular metric that is shipped with EM. Metric extensions can be built for all target types. After selecting a target type, when you create a metric extension, you will be presented with one or more adapters available for that particular target type. Some examples of these adapters are OS command, where a shell script is run at the OS level on the host. And if the target type is database, we have a SQL adapter that can run PL SQL scripts on the database. We also have adapters for SNMP and JMX to support management information-based files and middleware servers. Metric extensions have a full life cycle, and there are 3 phases involved. First, you develop your metric extension, and then you test it, and then you deploy it. The nice thing about metric extensions is you can export and import them. And what that means is you can create it once in your development environment and then import it into your production environment, either standalone or as part of a monitoring template. We have a tutorial for metric extensions, and I encourage you to watch it. Starting with EM 13.1, you can now calculate a metric column based on the value from another metric column in a metric extension. This new feature is called compute expressions. With compute expressions, you can do arithmetic operations between columns within the same metric extension. An example of this is you want to get the percent free space. To get this value, first we use a script to get the used disk space and total disk space. Then we get the free disk space by subtracting total disk space from used disk space. And finally, we divide free disk space by total disk space and multiply by 100 to get the percentage free space. So you get the idea, right? There's a lot of operations that you can do to get the values from different columns within the metric extension to derive the final result that you're looking for. So this feature extends metric extensions capabilities further by allowing users to compute values within the metric extension itself. The left-hand side of this slide shows the operators available for compute expressions, and there are many operators available to suit your needs. On the right-hand side is a screenshot of the space usage metric extension example that was mentioned previously. Notice the compute expression column shows the calculation derived from other available columns within the metric extension. Also new, starting with EM 13.1, is an advanced property scope for database metric extensions. In 13C, you can now specify the scope of the metric extension to be at the database instance or container level. The new advanced properties option will only appear if you are creating a metric extension for a database instance or for a cluster database target type. When you create the metric extension, you can specify what type of database the metric extension can be deployed to. And a sample use case for this feature is, say you want to use a monitoring template to deploy a metric extension only to rack instance, but not to single instance database. So to achieve this, you can select rack instance only as the instance scope. You can even further refine the scope of the database target by specifying whether it's a container database to be CDB only, or you can say, I want to exclude CDB, which means that you want it to apply to pluggable database. This feature can also be used to instruct the metric extension to be applied to a group of databases based on its data guard status. With these options, you have finer control with regards to the targets you want to apply the metric extensions to. So after you have monitoring set up, the next step is to manage your alerts. And this is what monitoring is all about, folks, because it doesn't make sense to monitor something and not get notified when things go wrong. So it's very important that you have your alerting, the incident rules set up correctly. That way you can get notified for the proper use cases that you want to know about. The first thing that you do is use incidents to focus on actionable issues. In Enterprise Manager, an incident is equivalent to a ticket. So what this means is that you should manage your issue at the incident level and not at the event level. An incident can have one or more related events and has a life cycle of its own. You can assign the owner, priority, track resolution status, add comments. All the things you do with a ticket, you can do with an incident. An incident in EM also reduces the volume of events to manage because you can combine related events with the same symptom or related events managed by the same person into a single incident. In this example on the right, all of the agent unreachable alerts are compressed into a single incident, so Joe can manage them as a single unit, which translates to more efficiency gains and cost savings for the company. As I mentioned, in EM 13.1, we released a new feature called Intelligent Incident Compression. This feature allows you to group related events into one incident in order to reduce the number of alerts. So instead of 13 target availability alert notifications, you receive one notification for all 13 events. This feature allowed your administrators to focus on the critical alerts and solves the flood of alerts problem that many of our customers have. Some common use cases for using the Intelligent Incident Compression feature to group alerts and receive one email notification includes, for example, when a host goes down, all of the targets running on that host also goes down. And this results in a lot of agent unreachable events for all targets on the same host. All of these events can be gracefully compressed into one incident. Another use case is when a parent target goes down, its composite members also goes down. So you can use the compression feature to compress target down events for database instances from a rack, or you can compress PDB target events from the same container database. Or you can compress events from WebLogic servers hosted on the same WebLogic cluster. You get the idea. You can also compress metric evaluation errors coming from members of a database system. These are just some examples. You are welcome to create your own compression logic to suit your needs. There is a training video available for this feature, and I highly recommend everyone to watch it. So once you have your rules set up and ready to go, Incident Manager is the place for you to view, manage, diagnose, and resolve incidents, as well as identify, resolve, and eliminate the root cause of disruptions. It is a one-stop shop to do it all. Incident Manager comes with out-of-the-box views to get you started. If you take a look at the screenshot here on the left-hand side, there are views that allow you to see all open incidents, all open problems, events without incidents, and so forth. So those are the out-of-the-box views that we ship with. And these views, they represent saved queries, so you can manage your incidents in a more meaningful way. You can also create your own queries and save them as custom views and mark them as public or private. From Incident Manager, you can choose to look at the incidents from Incident Dashboard. An Incident Dashboard provides an executive overview of incidents. It allows you to track and monitor different aspects of incident management and lets you get a sense of how the incidents are distributed. Specifically, the Incident Dashboard presents another way of looking at a scoped set of incidents using custom views. In addition to providing an intuitive way to interpret incidents and incident distribution patterns, the dashboard provides you with quick and easy access to incident lifecycle actions such as acknowledging, escalating, assigning, and setting the priority of incidents. So on this dashboard, if you were to click on any of those graph components, you can essentially drill down into those incidents and further slice and dice to get to the view that you want to see. So there's a lot of flexibility built into an incident dashboard, and it's a way to make your life easier when you're triaging and managing your incidents. We have many customers who want to integrate Enterprise Manager with third-party management systems. Enterprise Manager has a number of management connectors to do just that. We have two types of connectors. One is a service desk connector for our ticketing system vendors. And this type of connector allows EM to automatically create service desk tickets in response to Enterprise Manager incidents. Another type of connector is an event connector for our event management vendors. This type of connector allows EM to forward events to third-party management systems. And then it is the third-party system that processes the event payload and decides what to do with it. We have 7 connectors available, which is shown on the right-hand side of the screen. So what does an EM connector allow you to do? In essence, it allows you to forward the events and incidents detected by Enterprise Manager to an outside events management or service desk system. It is via this fashion that the connector allows you to see incidents and monitoring information spanning across multiple systems in one location. Support processes are streamlined because there is one help desk system to triage. And last but not least, having all the relevant information in one place allows you to conduct cross-platform root cause analysis and diagnosis in a more efficient manner. This is an overview of all the connectors available from Enterprise Manager and the third-party vendor versions supported. I would just want to mention that we are pretty up to date with certifying new vendor releases as they become available. However, as always, please check the Enterprise Manager documentation library or MOS for updates on our latest certifications. The documentation link is provided at the bottom of this slide, and this deck will be provided after the session. Okay, so with alerting setup now, every once in a while, you need to maintain your servers and applications. And remember earlier, we recommended creating groups. Well, this is another area where having groups will make it easier for you to create blackouts. What a blackout is that it will essentially stop the alerting while you are maintaining your targets. And there are 2 types of blackouts. First, a normal blackout basically turns off monitoring, and agents do not monitor the targets. Because the targets are not monitored, no events are created, and the administrator does not get alerts. The second type is a notification blackout, which continues to monitor the targets. In this case, alerts are not sent because notification is suspended by the OMS. A notification blackout allows proactive monitoring of the status and health of targets during maintenance. In EM 13.4, we provided the ability to exclude any indirect member targets from a blackout. We already have an EM CLI verb called create blackout for you to do this from the command line. And as an enhancement, we have created new options for this verb so that you can exclude indirect member targets. The exclude types verb option will exclude all indirect targets of the specified type and their members from the blackout. The exclude target verb option will exclude the indirect target by target type and name. With the release of EM13.1, we released a tool called Always On Monitoring, or AOM. This tool is used during scheduled EM downtime so that we can continue to monitor targets and notify administrators while EM is undergoing maintenance. Always On Monitoring provides continuous email alerting for targets during EM downtime. And because installation is completely separate and independent from EM, it is always on regardless of the status of EM. What this does is AOM receives target availability events, metric alerts, and metric evaluation errors from agents, and it sends notifications to administrators based on the contact list defined in the downtime contact target property. Only the contacts defined for the downtime contact target property will receive notifications from AOM. So if you only want to be notified for your mission critical targets during planned EM maintenance, you only need to define the downtime contact target property for those mission critical targets. This is a new target property we created for the specific purpose of AOM. This target property can be configured at a global level or at a target specific level. If configured at a global level, the same list of recipients will receive all alerts for all targets. And if configured at a target specific level, only downtime contact recipients for that specific target will receive the notification. Starting with EM13.4, AOM will provide the capability to filter alerts by event type and severity. Alert filtering by event type allows you to enable or disable notifications based on the type of event. By default, target availability and metric alert notifications are enabled. And this is because in most cases, customers want to know when their target is down or when CPU utilization is above 90%, even while the Oracle management service is down for maintenance. By default, metric evaluation error alerts are disabled because this is considered lower priority, especially while EM is under maintenance. In terms of severity, by default, fatal, critical, and warning alerts are enabled with clear, advisory, and informational alerts disabled. So both of these alerting features will be enabled by default starting with EM13.4. And because different customers have different requirements, we have a set of EM-SCTO verbs to change the alert settings for Always On Monitoring. Instructions on how to change the alerts are included in the appendix of this slide deck. In summary, here are all the concepts we have covered today during our session. These are some of the basic features that come with Enterprise Manager out of the box that you can leverage for monitoring your IT estate, whether it is on-premise, in the cloud, or hybrid. Here are links to the latest Enterprise Manager documentation library so you can access them at your fingertips. So I mentioned that, I mentioned Enterprise Manager 13.4 several times already. For those of you that have not upgraded to EM13.4 yet, it was released in January of this year. And we have been providing release updates on a monthly cadence. The latest is RU6, which was just released this month. EM13.4 adds functionality that automates the database migration experience and provides a single dashboard that improves visibility, control, and management for hybrid IT environments. Oracle Enterprise Manager also provides enhancements in 3 key areas to help enterprises more easily manage hybrid database environments, including increased visibility and intelligent analytics, comprehensive lifecycle automation and control, and mobility and security. Also, in the spirit of customer choice, we've introduced a new updated mobile app for EM. This app provides both visibility and actions right at your fingertips and includes features that enable team collaboration for even more rapid troubleshooting. We're not just stopping at integrations with OMC, OCI, and smartphones. We're laser focused on hyper-extensibility, and Enterprise Manager has many features that enable integration with third-party tools. The open source BI tool Grafana is very popular with customers. And so we have introduced a new Grafana plugin that makes it easy for customers to interact with their EM data while leveraging the visualization power of Grafana. We're also excited to announce that Oracle Enterprise Manager is available as an app on Oracle Cloud Marketplace. The EM app consists of pre-configured, ready-to-use EM environment, including the Oracle Management Service server and Oracle Management Repository database for deployment on a single Oracle Linux host. This app will install a brand new EM instance, which can be used immediately. It's not intended for migrations of existing EM environments, but it will help you get started using EM with minimal effort. We are adding new configurations that correspond with our high availability and maximum availability architecture best practices, and we will continue to enhance those on a regular basis going forward. This is just kind of, I just want to point out that we have strong customer momentum. Trust Radius the folks have rated Enterprise Manager 9 out of 10 on Trust Radius. And we also have received the G2 Leader Award for Oracle Enterprise Manager during the spring and also now in the fall of 2020. And we also received a badge from users that love us, and we are rated highly on G2. So this concludes my presentation. I included some additional features in the appendix for the sake of time because we don't have time to cover everything and all the rich features we have in Enterprise Manager. However, this deck will be made available to you and you are free to explore the additional materials that are available in the appendix. Okay, so are there any questions from folks on the call?
There is one. Can you access the Q&A section, or should I read the question?
Let me see. I can't see my bar. Okay, let me do this. If you can read it to me, because
yes, of course.
If you're having trouble finding it.
I missed entry basic monitoring, but is there an Oracle document which shows you what is allowed without Enterprise Edition diagnosis or tuning pack?
So the basic monitoring features are actually free, okay? However, if you want to receive notifications, you need to have license for one of our management packs. So the question here is if there
is an Oracle document.
Oracle document.
Which show you what is allowed without Enterprise Edition.
Enterprise Edition database?
Without Enterprise Edition or diagnosis or tuning pack. That's what is writing.
Okay.
Maybe he can add something else to clarify.
Can folks unmute themselves right now and just ask questions?
I'm trying to find him.
Okay. Well, we do have a license guide for Enterprise Manager, and it's very specifically lists out all the features that come with the packs and all of the base monitoring features that are free. So I think if you just go to the Enterprise Manager licensing guide, you should be able to get a little more information about, you know, the features that you can use out of the box without any management paths.
So it's Stefan Egger, if I'm pronouncing correct. He is still online, and I'm trying to
I'll ask him to unmute.
Yes, I think no, yeah, he has to unmute himself. I can't do it.
Okay, while we're waiting. Oh, I think he just unmuted.
Yes.
Hi, Stefan.
We can hear you. His microphone is not working, but we hope that, well, Karilyn answered to your question. If not, please type in. Another question, is it allowed to monitor standard edition database with Cloud Control 13C?
Yes, you can monitor any version of the database that we are certified with. So the latest certification we have, I believe, is with DB20C, and we are working on providing DB21C support once that is released.
Nothing else for the moment. So if we don't have any other question, not in the chat window, not in the Q&A, I want to thank you again for being with us today. Thank you for all the attendees that are with us till 7 p.m. in Europe. Have a nice weekend, have a nice day, stay safe, and hopefully we will meet each other in person in Bucharest.
Yes, I look forward to that. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today, and thank you all for staying till your dinner time, and maybe past that in some time zones.
If you have another minute, another question came. Can you explain more about incident compress?
Okay. Let me try to go back to those slides. It's quite a ways back. It's almost there. Okay, well, I'm trying to get back there. So incident compression is a feature, as I mentioned. It compresses events into a single incident. And the way it does that is by leveraging, of course, the incident rules. If you have EM 13.1 and later releases, then you have incident compression feature in the product today. We shipped EM with some out-of-the-box compression rules already, and that's kind of part of the overall incident management rule set that you see when you install Enterprise Manager. If you expand that rule set, you'll see there are 3 rules that start with the word compression. And I think one of the rules is to compress events from the same rack. So essentially what that does is, you know, there's a lot of flexibilities built in, because if you play around and try to create your own, you'll see that there's a lot of ways you can compress different types of events into the same incident. And some examples of that are, for example, you know, the rack, you know, if all the database instances hosted on the rack, if the rack goes down, you want to compress all the events from the different DB instances into the same incident. So if that rack is hosting, say, 10 DB instances, the rack goes down, you would usually get 11 separate notifications, one for each event, right? Those 10 DB instances and one for the rack. if you have a rule that says, okay, I want to compress the events from this, that all come from parent rack into one incident and then be notified at that incident level, then you will receive only one email notification that contains all of the events when the rack goes down. 10 of them is from the DB instance that is hosted on the rack, and one of them is for the rack itself. So in here, if you look at the screenshot down here, this is a view of the incident manager, and these are actually incidents that you see here. You can add a column called member count, okay? And that will show you how many events are folded into that one incident. So in this case, you know, we have 5 target here. In this case, we have 5 target availability events on the targets hosted by, you know, some host name, right? And then also, we also compressed 5 metric alert events on the targets hosted by the same host. And as I mentioned, if you go to the training video, there's very clear step-by-step instructions that walks you through on how to create your own incident rule set with rules that allow you to compress multiple events, related events, into the same incident. I mean, it doesn't even have to be related, but the most common use case we have seen is that, you know, administrators don't want to get hundreds of notifications if a parent goes down, right? If you have a WebLogic cluster, for example, that's hosting 100 WebLogic servers, if the cluster goes down, you don't want to get 100 email notifications. So this is a way for us to reduce the noise a little further so that you have a clear picture, you know, easier for you to manage and find the root cause of the problem. I hope this answers the question.
I hope too. I don't get any feedback. And the last one, I'm not taking anything except this one. Briefly list 13.4 new features.
13.4 new features. Well, if you want a comprehensive list, you can go to the EM 13.4 documentation. There is a link that specifically lists all of the new features based on different areas, okay? You know, it will list like, you know, framework versus database management, all those things. From the framework perspective, one of the new features is the ability to enable or disable certain types of always-on monitoring alerting based on either event type or severity. Another thing that's mentioned in here are the ability to exclude indirect members from a blackout. There are some things that are, you know, new in 13.3 that I didn't mention earlier, and that's in the appendix. So for example, the ability to customize your Enterprise Manager login page, that was released in 13.3 because a lot of our customers, you know, they want their own logo on the EM page, and they also want to have some sort of instructional text to help customers, well, to help their users get started with EM, or if they want to say a link to get password reset help, you know, all those customizations are now available on the EM login page. So as I said, I encourage you to go to the Enterprise Manager 13.4 documentation. We have a what's new guide every time we have a new major release. So that's nothing new. We have the new features guide for 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, and now 13.4.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the extra time that you spend with us and respond all these questions. Again, have a good day and hopefully see you soon in person.
Thank you. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. And I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.